Welcome to the Natural Health Show with one of New England's leading natural health care specialists, Mark Mincola. Call Mark at 781-837-4900 on 95.9 WATD. He's waiting to hear from you.
Welcome home, Natural Health Nation. As always, it's very special to have you join us here on the Natural Health Show. And as always, we're going to hook you up with some information essential for your well-being, your maximized health, etc. Great to have you here. Hey, for years there have been some remarkable discussions about genes, about the idea that you can actually alter the behavior and the programming of your genes. And specifically, in terms of tonight's program, genes can be altered to extend life expectancy. That's pretty remarkable information, of course. The current life expectancy in this country is 77 years. But apparently, according to some remarkable research, you can add to that. And, we think in terms of genes being sort of immovable forces. And to some extent, that's true. You can only change genes 1/10 of 1% every 250 generations. So your genes aren't going anywhere, kids. But in terms of the manner in which they are formatted, or the way they behave, the way they respond to your programming or your formatting, pretty remarkable that they can change drastically in 0.7 of a second. So your choices for nutrition, nutritional supplementation, the manner in which you eat, the manner in which you do or don't exercise, all these things play a significant role in the manner in which your genes function and are downloaded. So you can't change the genes, but you can certainly change their behavior. And in this case, you can alter your genetic behavior to extend the life expectancy program that you have within your chemistry. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the idea that there was a 2-year calorie restriction study sponsored by Tufts University. And it's basically the result of some remarkable previous research. It was animal studies. Decades, actually, since the 1930s, there have been remarkable calorie restriction studies performed on animals and microorganisms that consistently extended lifespans by as much as 50%. So one of the most important factors of nutrition is really calorie restriction. In fact, we might say that calorie restriction remains the single most influential variable for life extension. I mean, above all other variables, whether you eat vegetables, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, there's all important factors there, of course, but really calorie restriction is one of the real cornerstones of health in terms of long-term survival here. And the Tufts Calorie Study of 2010, it's spelled CALERIE, and it's an acronym standing for Comprehensive Assessment of Long-Term Effects of Reducing the Intake of Energy. And subjects have reduced their total calories by 25% to, in fact, see if calorie restriction could slow the aging process and extend their lifespan. And it's, as we said, following the decades of animal and microorganism studies that showed as much as a 50% life extension with calorie restriction. Also, a 2009 University of Wisconsin study, researchers performed calorie restriction studies on human-like rhesus monkeys. And the calorie-restricted monkeys consistently found a marked increase in their life expectancy and a marked decrease in their diabetes, cancer, heart disease, dementia than their counterparts. So we're really talking about some remarkable studies that have been done for the past 80 years or so. And calorie restriction is defined by a calorie reduction of 25 to 30%, but still maintaining essential nutrients in that diet. And to date, monkeys, rats, dogs, spiders, mice, fruit flies, worms, bacteria, several forms of yeast have all confirmed life extension via calorie restriction. Again, life extension by as much as 50% is quite significant. So the human studies have really fired up. Specifically, we're looking for the results any day now. There's long-awaited results of the Tufts calorie study of 2010. 2-year study just about over. So we'll be hearing in the fall from the Tufts researchers about that particular study. But again, this is an issue that's been going on since the 1930s. It's been well studied. It's been well debated. And we're talking about something that is really, I think, very, very promising. So the notion that we lower our calorie responses says that we lower the risk of damage to our DNA and RNA. You know, the more you eat, the more you're building up concentrations of fats, sugars, sodium, you know, stressing the body in general, certainly stressing the digestive tract, but also stressing your gene responsiveness, your ability to repair your DNA, your RNA. Again, these calorie restriction studies say that the key is that this calorie restriction actually engages high concentrations of sirtuins, S-I-R-T-U-I-N-S, sirtuins, specifically sirtuin 1 and sirtuin 3. And sirtuins are basically proteins. They're the proteins in gene research that have been discovered that are the key components to genetically programming your body to live a long, long time. So these sirtuins directly respond to calorie restriction. So again, you cut your calories down over an extended period of time without sacrificing your essential nutrients, and your sirtuin production goes up. Your sirtuin production becomes more efficient. And again, sirtuins are responsible for longevity. Well, so in recent years, there have been a number of different pharmaceutical grants issued to scientists and researchers to find a drug that can simulate in the human body the calorie restriction chemistry in a way that increases sirtuins so that we can increase life expectancy with a drug. Well, lo and behold, nutrient researchers found a nutritional supplement that actually beat the drug to the punch. So I'm here to tell you tonight, there is an over-the-counter natural supplement that you can purchase tomorrow morning at the health food store that has been documented as an agent in research that can indeed mimic calorie restriction and increase your sirtuin response and provide you with greater longevity factor. We're going to talk about that right after these messages. Stay tuned. Alrighty, welcome back. And of course, the Natural Health Show is also streaming live on Ustream, and we're linked up to Twitter and Facebook this evening and every Sunday evening. So hopefully you're exchanging, and intern Michelle Riley can actually take your questions if you're interested, and we'll certainly answer them. We're talking with you tonight about calorie restriction and the idea of longevity, living longer. Of course, study after study, beginning with decades of animal studies, clearly indicate that calorie restriction by 25 to 30% over your normal elevated levels of caloric intake, but without sacrificing nutrients, essential nutrients, is a significant difference maker in elevating a gene in your body called sirtuin 1 and another gene called sirtuin 3. The sirtuin genes are NAD-dependent proteins, nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide. There you go. And that means that basically that it is an oxidizing agent synthesized from building blocks, specifically tryptophan, aspartic acid. But here's the real rub on this stuff is we're talking about a process whereby you can increase your longevity factor. And this is for real. So by eating 25 to 30% less, by keeping your essential nutrients elevated, your sirtuin 1 and 3 genes increase, your DNA repair, your RNA repair increase. And don't forget, you do need DNA repair because you take 30,000 DNA hits every single day. 30,000 mutational hits to your DNA every single day, trying to trigger a problem, trying to unfold a genetic expression that is not favorable, that is disease-oriented, that is aging your body, that is breaking your body down. So you need that protection, you need that repair. That's what anti-aging is really about at this level. So this sirtuin gene is extremely important. And again, what we're really talking about is that there's three ways that we've addressed this evening that you can increase the sirtuin gene and increase your longevity factors, your prospects for longevity. Number one would, of course, be calorie restriction, like we keep saying here, because study after study is showing so. The human studies are just about to come out, and again, they've got to be leaning in the same direction as 80 years of animal studies that have clearly indicated by as much as, that longevity can be ensured by calorie restriction by as much as 50%. Pretty remarkable. But the other two components, the other two aspects of encouraging this kind of chemistry to manifest, number one, I guess, is they're looking to develop a drug. The pharmaceutical world is, big surprise there. That's what they do. So they're looking to develop a drug, and in their excitement to try to mimic this calorie restriction gene triggering for life extension. Along about the way, lo and behold, a group of researchers in the area of nutrition beat them to the punch. Imagine that. So the supplement that we're going to talk about that has actually been associated with this whole process of longevity and sirtuin gene triggering is called pterostilbene. P is silent, Pterostilbene, pterostilbene. Pterostilbene is a supplement that you can purchase over the counter of your neighborhood health food store. Get on down to Good Health and get yourself some pterostilbene in the morning. Why would you do that? Very simply because pterostilbene is a very powerful antioxidant. It's a powerful form of resveratrol. Everybody's heard about the French paradox and about the resveratrol. Well, pterostilbene is a very powerful form, a more powerful form of resveratrol found in blueberries and grapes. And it's, again, spelled Pterostilbene, pterostilbene. And again, it is available on the over-the-counters at health food stores. You're looking at doses generally about 50 to 60 milligrams. There's a variety of different companies that do indeed manufacture pterostilbene as a supplement. And generally, I look for a really good quality company like Jarrow Formulas. And Jarrow Formulas produces a 50 milligram version of pterostilbene. But when you think of pterostilbene, you want to think about an antioxidant that's a polyphenol. Once again, think of the French paradox. Think of the idea that wine and its grapes and berries and all the remarkable studies that have been done on wine and grapes and berries over the years for their antioxidant properties are directly correlated here with pterostilbene. And the research points to the fact that the genetic triggering capability of pterostilbene to mimic calorie restriction, these studies have indicated that it does indeed do that in the body, mimics calorie restriction in a way to kind of direct the body in a manner that it increases its sirtuin 1 and 3 production. And when those genetic factors are triggered, then the longevity response is also activated. So, again, I think that the objective here is to understand that sirtuin triggering nutrients like pterostilbene are really viable ways to mimic a lot of this important calorie restriction. Now, I certainly wouldn't encourage anybody to start taking pterostilbene and then overeating. That is not the point. Of course, I know we tend to have a pill mentality in this culture, but to maintain your highest probabilities for life extension, I would suggest that you think in terms of calorie restriction plus a wonderful antioxidant supplement such as pterostilbene. 50 to 100 milligrams a day, more than enough to do so. And again, as we said at the outset of the broadcast, you can only change a gene 0.1% every 250 generations. But genes are not the fixed units of heredity that you might think. Most folks think in terms of genes being fixed. The father of the modern human genome, J. Craig Venter, once said that the genetic determinism factor is dead. So this idea that people continue to throw around that Well, no, this is a genetic problem that I have. My doctor told me it was purely a genetic reason that my cholesterol is elevated, or because my father has elevated cholesterol, my grandfather, that I'm going to have it, and it's just genetic. And according to the father of the modern human genome, J. Craig Venter, and you can check it out, he's all over the internet, but Venter says genetic determinism has been dead for over 25 years. So for people to make that gene argument, you are wasting your precious time. It's really about the signaling of genes. It's about the behavior of your genes in a process known as gene expression. So once again, you can't change your genes. That is a fact. That's a fixed unit of heredity. But you can indeed change the messages to and the behavior of your genes in a process known as gene expression. And there are certain influences within and outside your body that can switch off genes or switch on genes. And a good example of that, of course, is things like stress or bad eating, bad diet can switch on destructive genes, genes that actually don't protect and don't repair your precious gene structures, your RNA, your DNA. Exercise, healthy diet can switch on certain repair genes. So it's the switching on and off of genetic material in your body that we're really talking about. And that's where this, remarkable new science of nutrition is most fascinating in my mind. The idea that we can actually find, as time goes on, as we have here, more and more nutrients that have the ability to send messages to your genes and to alter the behavior of your genes and to alter genetic expression. That is what it's all about. So when we talk about the new world we live in and the remarkable world of nutrition, we're really talking about studies such as the new taro-stilbene studies that can actually increase the gene proteins, the SIRT1 and 3, the SIRT2 and 1 and 3, mimicking calorie restriction longevity response. And, I think that a lot of folks, of course, have heard a great deal about the resveratrol issue. There's been an awful lot of talk about resveratrol. Many of the television doctors talked about resveratrol, and, of course, the French paradox talks about it. I always mention that resveratrol kind of works closely hand in hand with the other polyphenols that are in berries and grapes. We talk about them all the time. I've talked for a number of times here on the Natural Health Show about the studies that have been done. My good friend Dr. Daniel Nixon down at the University of South Carolina Medical School at the Hollings Cancer Research Institute, because for 10 years or more he did research on ellagic acid within the little seeds within raspberries. The equivalent of 3/4 of a cup of raspberries, because of the ellagic acid, which again is a polyphenol, much like the resveratrol and the taro-stilbene, again, that you're finding in grapes and berries. It's all about the grapes and berries. And that in his particular research at University of South Carolina, the equivalent of 3/4 of a cup of raspberries has enough of this polyphenol antioxidant support and protection to literally kill cancer cells within 72 hours and to stop cancer's replication within 48 hours. So we're talking about chemotherapeutic effects of antioxidants. And what is it that really has this remarkable power? The real key is the antioxidant polyphenols. And these remarkable agents in taro-stilbene and in resveratrol are really very similar. They're part of that whole family of antioxidants. And it just feels like study after study just continues to show that these do have these polyphenols from berries and grapes have these remarkable properties. Taro-stilbene has also been found to be an inflammatory channel blocker and enhances nitric oxide levels. So it lowers blood pressure, increases oxygen circulation in the blood. It's been shown to suppress the formation of precancerous cells in animal studies to date and improve memory, cognition by protecting and preventing the loss of the neurotransmitter dopamine in animal studies. So again, when you think about the properties of these just powerful, powerful protective antioxidant agents that you get in your berries and your grapes. And of course, we're talking about taro still being and its ability to increase your body's prospects for longevity. We also want to reiterate, as we tend to do on this program, that it's not just about the pills, even though these are great pills and remarkable studies about these amazing supplements, taro still being and resveratrol. But the foods themselves, we can't lose track of the fact that it's all about nature. It's all about nature's foods. It's all about natural foods, berries, grapes. It's really about those wonderful, wonderful nutritive agents that are in those berries and fruits. I often talk about the USDA study 2005. I talk about it quite often. It's really pretty impressive. The ORAC study, Oxygen Radical Absorbance Capacity. Big term, but it simply means that we can measure the punch, the power that is packed within your foods. And the USDA did a study back in 2005 to be able to determine how to advise you as to the strongest antioxidant-rich foods, the foods that are the most powerful anti-cancer, anti-heart disease foods. How can the USDA come up with a formula that helps the American public understand where their best bang for their buck is with antioxidants? And that's exactly what this 2005 study was all about. So they looked at virtually every food, every spice, all fruits and vegetables, etc., and they basically broke it down. 8 of the top 10 most antioxidant-rich disease-protective agents, 8 of the top 10 were berries and beans. 8 of the top 10. So berries and beans were found to be way up there on the list. The highest antioxidant scores were around the 14,700 range, and that was red kidney beans at 14,700. Number 2 were wild blueberries at 14,500. So we're talking about the number 2 antioxidant-rich food, and one of those powerful antioxidants that is so widely studied these days is exactly the one we're talking about this evening, and it is spelled PTEROSTILBENE, and the first P, of course, is silent. Taro still bean. Kind of a crazy long word, but you want to get on down to the health food store and check it out. Maybe Google it, do a little research on it, do your homework. But it's well worth taking a good, hard look at. Taro still bean is something that can be purchased in 50 or 60 milligram denominations or potencies at the health food store. I usually recommend that you take about 100 to 120 milligrams of taro still bean a day if you are looking for a longevity factor in your supplement intake. And again, I caution everybody not to start eating more bonbons and trying to live off the taro still bean. It doesn't work that way. Calorie restriction is still an important part of this longevity component, even though the taro still bean will do that mimicking that we talked about, and it will actually convince your body to trigger the sirtuin 1 and 3 genes, mimicking calorie restriction longevity response. So you do a little bit of both, and I think you're really doing your body a great favor. Calorie restriction is numero uno. Don't overeat. Number 2, get yourself a great antioxidant support that has a way of calorie restriction response, of enhancing calorie restriction response. And again, that would be 100 to 120 milligrams of taro still bean. Hey, we're going to take a short little break, pay a few bills, be right back. Stay tuned. Alrighty, welcome back. And we've been talking with you about how to ensure your longevity by making certain that you are faking your body out. Making your body believe that you are calorie restrictive, which you should be anyway, especially if you're an overeater. But producing the effects of calorie restriction that, of course, have been so well documented. Again, fewer calories means lower blood pressure, lower cholesterol, lower triglyceride, blood sugar levels, in which we have a translation of longer life. And many researchers believe that calorie restriction remains the single most influential variable when it comes to the idea of living a long time. And again, these studies make it very clear that of all the things you can do to extend, take your vitamins, exercise, meditate, et cetera, lower your fatty intake. Calorie restriction is still the single most important factor according to many, many experts, for longevity. And again, it's defined as restricting your calorie intake by 25-30%, especially, again, if you're, the average American, of course, unfortunately, is probably overeating. And, we live in a culture which is, it sort of makes it easy to overeat. It's inclined to overconsume calories. Food is easy to get at. It's in a package or a box or a can or a jar. And it's just quick to grab off a shelf and overeat it any time of day or night. And apparently 67% of Americans are doing that because 67% of Americans are now overweight. And, some 22% are obese. So, calorie restrictions are where it's at. And these particular studies, again, so far to date, monkeys, rats, dogs, spiders, mice, fruit flies, worms, bacteria, several forms of yeast have all confirmed life extension via calorie restriction. So really a powerful message here that there is something genetic that calorie restriction triggers. And that triggering of gene exchanges in your body basically is the SIRT1 and the SIRT3, or SIRT2 and 1 and SIRT2 and 3 genes that have been shown to increase lifespan in animal studies by as much as 50%. I wanted to talk a little bit here about these SIRT2 and 3. We've talked about the SIRT2 and 1. Now I want to talk about the SIRT2 and 3. The SIRT2 and 3 protein is located in the mitochondria, and it's responsible for the effects of calorie restriction on the mitochondria. That's kind of fascinating stuff because the mitochondria really is mitochondria is a big word nowadays in the world of natural health and nutrition, because your mitochondria is really the engine within your cell. It's the motor within your cell. It's what makes your cells go or not go. And you could actually say that the entire process of longevity, versus disease, has everything to do with the functioning of the mitochondria, the engine within that cell. Certainly energy even is an important component. The adenosine triphosphate, the fuel, as it were, that keeps you up and running and that keeps you highly energized throughout your day and week, is really fuel that charges the energy within the mitochondria, the motor within those cells. And this SIRT2 and 3 protein or gene is located in the mitochondria. So your not just your longevity, but your vitality factor, like we keep saying earlier, that the repair of your DNA, the repair of your RNA, your body's ability to recover from a lot of the genetic hits, the 30,000 gene explosions that are trying to kind of upset you every day and trying to throw you off your game, are really focal within the mitochondria and in the protein that's within there. That's SIRT2 and 3. So the SIRT2 and 3 protein is an important factor that the pterostilbene has the ability to increase in your cell structures. So again, the new research says that the SIRT2 and 1 and 3 are really dramatically affected by the pterostilbene in a similar way that they would be if you were engaged in calorie restriction. So the objective here is to really have a sense of balance between the two, as I say, the calorie restriction plus the supplementation. I also wanted to mention, too, that, again, there are many different properties associated with pterostilbene as a nutritional supplement. And as a nutritional supplement, we're talking about something that is an inflammatory channel blocker. How important is that? We talk about inflammation, prior to the 1930s, inflammation was thought of as, tennis elbow. But inflammation is far more than tennis elbow. Now that we know that inflammation was defined as a hormonal icosanoid, it's kind of like a signaling. It's like a signaling enzyme, and it tells other cells and other hormones in the body what to do. It's an order giver, and it's really an important determining factor at how immunity works, especially in this area of longevity. Because one of the things you want to look at with inflammatory channel blocking, 72% of all disease, 72% of all disease is said to be inflammatory nowadays. So we're talking heart disease. Heart disease is inflammatory more from a thromboxane 2 perspective. Thromboxane 2 is a blood clotting factor. That's a way of sort of suggesting that inflammation at a blood level is about clotting. And so we produce inflammation at a blood level. We can produce inflammation at an immune level. We can produce inflammation at a circulatory level. We can produce inflammation at a neurological, at an immunological. So things like asthma are inflammatory. Things like lupus, inflammatory. Things like rheumatoid arthritis, inflammatory. So when we say that pterostilbene is an inflammatory channel blocker, I mean, that's an extremely important nutritive factor with the pterostilbene as well. As we said, also, it enhances nitric oxide levels. And nitric oxide is nothing more than the agent that keeps the arteries well expanded so that there's not hypertension, that there's plenty of circulatory response, and it keeps your body stress neutral. You know, the idea that you can be highly stressed from a lot of what you're encountering through your stressful weeks, but nitric oxide will really extend the delivery of oxygen to your cells, keep you young, keep you youthful, keep you vibrant, keep your tissues elastic, keep your arteries elastic. And again, nitric oxide is one of those things that is enhanced by the intake of pterostilbene as a nutritional supplement. And as we said, also, it's been shown to suppress the formation of precancerous cells in animal studies. And it's all part of that whole that whole antioxidant idea, like we talked about earlier, that Dr. Nixon and Dr. Gary Stoner from Ohio State University have done. He's done over 20 years of research on the importance of raspberries at cutting down cancer, and the idea that the raspberries produce a polyphenol that is very, very powerful called ellagic acid, and the little seeds that get stuck in your teeth from eating raspberries. And again, those units of ellagic acid are extremely important, as Dr. Gary Stoner has found at Ohio State University and Dr. Daniel Nixon at the University of South Carolina Medical School. Both have found combined 30 years of research at the anti-cancer properties. 9 different types of human cancers implanted in animals have been antagonized very aggressively, the result of raspberries, because of the antioxidant factor that we keep talking about. So the polyphenols really are the key in this whole mix. So the broad range of possibilities in terms of health and in terms of longevity are pretty amazing. So we're talking about inflammatory channel blockers, and I should say inflammatory channel blocking agents, and nitric oxide enhancers. We're talking about antagonists for precancerous cells in animal studies. Also improving memory and cognition. I mean, who needs any help in those areas? I'm guessing most people do. Our brains are so highly jammed with information these days that people are losing track of their memory at younger and younger ages, and cognition responses are more and more stressed and overworked every day. So again, we're talking about an agent that has the ability to protect the loss of dopamine in the brain. You know, dopamine you might want to think of as an activator, a neurotransmitter that activates the functioning of the brain and learning and memory. So we're talking about something that has the ability to activate and help circulate and prevent the loss of the neurotransmitter dopamine. So again, pterostilbene has really proven itself in a myriad of different studies, and I urge you to take a look at it. Again, it's spelled P as in Peter, Terostilbene, pterostilbene. That's what we've been talking about this evening, as a remarkable agent to fake your body out, in a way, to make your body think that you are calorie restrictive even if you're not, and indeed mimicking the powerful antioxidant properties and life-extending properties of calorie restriction. And again, we mentioned at the outset of the broadcast that the 2-year Tufts study starting in 2010, comprehensive assessment of long-term effects of reducing intake of energy. Those are the acronym words: comprehensive assessment of long-term effects reducing intake of energy. A calorie study, CALERIE, and it's all about subjects being asked to reduce their calories by 25% to see if the calorie restriction could indeed slow the aging process and extend the lifespan. And after all, why wouldn't it? Because it has done so in animal study after animal study for the past 80 years. And the closest thing to a human study we have in this area right now is the 2009 University of Wisconsin study performed on calorie restriction on the human-like rhesus monkey. And the calorie-restricted monkeys consistently demonstrated a marked decrease in diabetes, cancers, heart disease, and dementia than their non-calorie restricted counterparts. So fewer calories, as we said, means lower BP, lower cholesterol, triglycerides, blood sugar levels, which in turn translates to a longer life. And again, experts are largely in agreement that that's how it all seems to work, and I don't think that we're going to be real surprised to find that it works similarly in human studies. And again, to some extent, this is purely intuitive. I mean, it's not we're not talking about Einsteinian logic here. I mean, when you have people basically overeating, there's probably only 50,000 studies out there that show that overeating diets that are very deficient in high nutrient uptake increase the risk for virtually every disease known to man. So this is purely the antithetical, the opposite of that. You know, that if you keep the nutrients up while keeping the calories down, you're not overworking your body, and you're allowing your body to more efficiently protect itself and defend itself from the ravages of DNA hits. And that's precisely what it's all about. So in terms of you taking pterostilbene, we're talking about 50 to 60 milligrams twice a day. I do recommend representable companies. I like the Jarrow formulas, of course. They've been friends and sponsors for a number of years, the Natural Health Show, and are readily available at Good Health Natural Foods chains and various health food stores in your communities. So you might want to look at Jarrow formulas, Jarrow, Jarrow formulas, Taro, Ptero, stilbene, Stilbene, 50 to 60 milligrams. I recommend 2 a day. And again, to make sure that the diet is really rich in antioxidants, and keep eating those berries and grapes. Get that original source, because again, supplements are great, but they are indeed just that. They are supplements, which means they're supplementing your marvelous patterns of eating or your great diet, which it should well be, I hope. And, these are the agents that are inclined to switch on really important gene responses in your body, genetic behavior, gene behavior. And you want to switch on these sirtuin 1 and 3 gene structures. And you want to make sure that you're overloading those circuits, because it's a great way to defend and protect yourself at a cellular and a genetic level, and to ensure the prospects for longevity. And again, study after study showing as much as 50%, that's remarkable, 50% longevity factor being enhanced by calorie restriction, simply cutting your calories back by 25 to 30%. And again, I think probably the saddest news of all this is that the American tendency to overeat, and the standard American diet, of course, the acronym for the standard American diet is the SAD diet, for good reason. Right, Tim? It is indeed a very sad acronym, and it points to a diet that is increasingly higher in fats and sugars. If you go back to the McGovern Committee report, 15 senators hearing testimony from 1,100 scientists from 8 different countries for a period of 6 years. Think about that. 15 senators hearing testimony from 1,100 of the world's foremost nutritionists and scientists and doctors for a period of 6 years. Doctors that hailed from 8 different nations around the world. And the world's greatest experts said that 60% of the average American diet was comprised of fat and sugar. 60% of the average American diet is comprised of fat and sugar. And that really kind of ties in with the 2005 ORAC study that we talked about earlier tonight, that the USDA did, trying to find how to find the highest antioxidant-rich foods of all, so that the American public could really identify with their best nutritional support. And, as we said, the blueberries were number 2, red kidney beans were number 1. Beans and berries were 8 of the top 10 foods, antioxidant-rich cancer and heart disease preventive foods. Well, here's the really important part of that. The highest point total, as I said earlier, is around 14,700 points. ORAC points, or antioxidant points. They put them on a sort of a relative score factor so we can understand which foods are the highest antioxidant foods. And as I said, the highest foods are around 14,700 or so. All right? The average American, according to the USDA, did not get 1,000 points a day. The average American did not get 1,000 points a day. That's pretty sad. I mean, all it takes is a quarter cup of blueberries to get 14,500. So the average American is not even doing that. It's like a bagel for breakfast, cup of coffee, it's a sandwich for lunch, it's a cereal bar, it's meat and potatoes at dinner. Which, hey, if that's what you want, that's fine. If you want longevity, you ain't going to get it doing it that way. Hey, we're going to take a quick little break. We'll be right back. Stay tuned. Alrighty, welcome back. And we're going to keep coming at you every Sunday night at 8 o'clock here on the Natural Health Show, live on Ustream. And we're going to get you used to that till we get things cooking with you. And we're also linked to Facebook and Twitter. So as promised earlier, we're going to handle some of your questions here before we part. And we'd like to thank intern Michelle Riley for helping us out with that. And we've got a couple of them here I want to tackle. Let's see. Does microwaving food destroy any of its nutrients? Number 1. Number 2, how safe is it to use a microwave to defrost, warm up food? So let's tackle both those together here. First of all, microwaves will distort the molecular structure of foods and destroy many of the nutrients within those foods. That's pretty well documented because you're dealing with microwave energy here. We're made of energy, food's made of energy, and there's a lot that you cannot see. There's a lot that cannot be proven with the technology that we have, but we do indeed know that there's an altering and distorting of the molecular structure of foods with microwave, and many of the nutrients, again, do get destroyed. So I don't have one in my home. I don't use microwave. I don't endorse it, and I think that it's a convenient technology, and that is about the nicest thing I can say, is it is convenient. But you are playing with Mother Nature, and as the old commercial used to say, it's not nice to fool Mother Nature. So anyway, there you go on microwave. Number 2, should Chlorofresh be taken daily to maintain a good pH level? Yeah, I mean, I think the first thing you want to do, I mean, a lot of folks are interested now more and more in alkalization and not being as acidic as they otherwise might. Disease is all about acidity, and health and healing is all about alkalinity. Every 1/10 of a point of alkalization, when you check your urine on the strips, every 1/10 of a point is equal to 64.9% oxygen differential. So, it's like saying that the more alkaline you are, the more oxygen you have at a blood level. Your cells are like mini-me's. The more oxygen that's available, the better it is. If you want to starve your cells for oxygen with acidosis, you're not going to get very far. And that's why disease thrives in very acidic conditions. So get the urinary strips. Good Health Natural Foods has those urine strips. They're the .067 calibrated strips, and they're very, very efficient. And again, you can check your urine first thing in the morning. That's the best time to do it after you've been laying down for any extended period of time. So you check your first morning's urine. You should be between 6.4 and 6.8. That's kind of like a neutral alkalinity. You certainly want to be over 6.4. You don't want to be below 6.4. The range goes from 5.0 all the way up to 8.0. So that's really, really important. So for those who test their urine, and if you're consistently under 6.4, then yes, the answer to that question is yes. You should take Chlorofresh daily to maintain a good pH level. Now, what if you've been doing that and you've been fairly stable for a number of weeks or months? You might want to try to wean off the Chlorofresh to see if, in fact, you're able to stabilize your pH without taking it, because that will happen in time. And then you just use it as needed. All right? Next question is, our drinking water comes from a well, but we do have filters and reverse osmosis. Is this safe enough to drink our water? I'd say absolutely. If you've got reverse osmosis, then you've got a zero TDS-based water. The key to me with good water, good friend of mine, Joel Attorney, was a Class 5 water expert, one of only about 125 of those in the world. And he put world water systems in for years and did a lot of lecturing and a lot of talking and writing and educating about water. I learned from him that the key is zero TDSs. The lower the total dissolvable solids, TDS is total dissolvable solids, the lower the better the water. So you basically want to think in terms of a low TDS, and the reverse osmosis will turn your TDSs to a zero-based TDS water, clean, safe, you betcha. So even though your water comes from a well, by the time you've RO'd it, you should be zero TDS. At the very least, you should be really, really low TDS. All right? So I'd say your water's fine. I say that the Chlorofresh is great if you need it. Take it as directed. Take it as needed. And microwave, see you later. All right, that was pretty straight ahead. All right, so again, we want to just kind of summarize real quickly. We've been talking with you about Terostilbene, P-T-E-R-O-S-T-I-L-B-E-N-E, Terostilbene. I like the Jarrow formulas, 50 milligrams twice a day. And again, the key here is it mimics calorie restriction. Good studies that have indicated that of late. And when you mimic calorie restriction, you trigger the SIRT1 or SIRT2-in-1 and SIRT2-in-3 genes in the mitochondria and in the cells, and increasing your prospects for longevity. So there you have it. That didn't take very long to get through that. So get on down to your neighborhood health food store and get yourself some Terostilbene ASAP. And don't sacrifice that diet like we always talk to you about here on the Natural Health Show. Take the time to keep the fruits and vegetables in abundance in your program. There's difference making there that can be made every day. We're down to 2 minutes already. This broadcast flies by every Sunday night. And hopefully you give listen next Sunday night and tell folks to share in that experience with you, pass it along. And we will take your questions. Again, if you want to catch us on Ustream, or again, we're linked live each Sunday night at 8 o'clock to Twitter and Facebook. So if you feel like firing off a question, Michelle Riley will help us with that. And then I will answer as I did this evening. So if you got your questions, line them up, and we'll knock them down. It's kind of like Radio Shack. You got questions, we got answers. Hey, this time flies by fast. I want to thank the aforementioned Michelle Riley, as well as Tim McKinney for doing a great job behind the board here. And I also want to thank you for staying tuned each and every Sunday night at 8 o'clock here on the Natural Health Show. I want to remind you, if you want to check out any of this information, we're going to be up again on YouTube this week, as we are each and every week. And there's a great YouTube, a lengthy volume of YouTube stuff stored on our archives there you can check out. Also go to our website, maxhealing.com. It's just one word, maxhealing.com. I'd like to thank Ed Perry as well for making all this possible. Until next Sunday, this is Mark Mincola reminding you all, please, be wise, be aware, be well. Make it a healthy week. Good night.